I'm guessing that whoever wrote this is not happy about the criticism, right? Because most of us don't like to be criticized. I don't. I know when I have criticized other people, they don't like it. And I think there are moments, if we think it's going to be constructive and we've set it up that way, we can handle criticism. But most of us don't like to be criticized. And so I'm guessing that this is going to be part of the struggle of why they are feeling angry, right? Like, okay, have your political views and you can be strong about them, but why the criticism? Why criticize? And so I want to just talk about this concept of criticism for just a second, because it has really fascinated me over the years. And from John Gottman's years and years and years of research on relationships, and especially the marriage relationship, their research discovered that criticism was really, really detrimental to the relationship. It's like one of the worst things. And so that was very eye-opening to me, like, oh my gosh, but people are critical. People are quick to criticize, but this ruins relationships. It can totally ruin a relationship. And so it is, I think, a very human thing to do, because if we're frustrated with something and we're frustrated with someone who has very different political views than us, we may think that they're going to judge us. And so we may become critical in the process and criticize other people. And so we're going to develop some thoughts about, should people criticize? Should this in-law criticize other family members because the differences are now more obvious? And that means we also have an expectation of this in-law to not be human, right? That they should just know better, that they know about Gottman's research, and that they shouldn't criticize people because it will ruin relationships. But the truth is, they probably don't know any of that stuff, right? They don't know about Gottman's research. They don't know that, criticism, how much damage it's actually doing. They might think it's helpful and constructive, and that their criticism is doing them a big favor, and that their criticism is going to be the one that changes their life for the better. So in this situation, I would definitely say, don't fall into the trap of criticizing back. Because if you criticize back, knowing about what criticism does to relationships, then you are the one that is also contributing to the relationship starting to break down or to escalate more quickly. So really manage yourself and say, no matter what anyone else is doing, I will be a person that is not going to criticize back. I don't do that. I don't do criticism. That's awesome. There is something that happens in the brain when we say, I don't do this, instead of saying like, I can't do it, or I'm not allowed to do it. When you say, I don't do that, that's very powerful, because it's showing that we're choosing not to do that thing. So when you choose to not be critical, wow, that is very empowering when you show up to a relationship with someone who just is very easy to criticize. So do not criticize back. And at the same time, do not stay silent. This is, again, I think, going back to the last question, or at the beginning of this, communication skills are so important, because you also don't want to just be quiet all the time. And there's no need for that. And you also don't want people to just walk all over you because you're like, I don't want to say anything back, or I don't want to be critical. But there's always a way to communicate effectively without criticism, always. And so it's our job to be able to say, I need to learn these communication skills. So when I show up and this in-law is ranting and raving about politics and criticizing me because I don't share his views, what am I going to do? How am I going to show up when they're being critical of me? How am I going to respond in a way that's now different? Because maybe in the past, I just gave it right back. but how can I show up differently? So I think in this situation, we would have to go through a process where we actually decide ahead of time to develop as a person and to develop a communication skill anytime you're around a critical or criticizing person. Say, anytime I'm around someone who is criticizing, that is my golden opportunity to level up and to skill up and to practice communication skills where I don't criticize, but I use awesome communication skills. I think if we all take a minute to kind of step back and look at the whole concept of relationships and something that most relationships struggle with, it's communication and effective communication. So if you're able to think ahead of time, how do I want to develop a skill, a communication skill when somebody is criticizing me? Wow, you're going to show up with a new skill that probably other people haven't seen before, including the one who's criticizing. So you're going to be giving them a different experience and also modeling and exempling a different way to communicate that is better for the relationships. They're not going to notice that and put it all together right away. It may take them a long time. But usually when you start to show up different with your own personal goal in mind, like I want to develop a better communication skill when I'm faced with criticism, they notice something. They're like, wait, they handled that different. Okay, that's different. Like, what's happening there? And it sparks a curiosity in them that they didn't have before. And that's curiosity and wonder is way better than just criticizing somebody. And usually what you find out is when you start doing your own work for yourself, your own development, your own progress, not for somebody else, but for yourself, and you start showing up different, people want to know why. They want to know like what's changing for you. And when they become curious, that's when they start to have their own change for their own reasons. That's effective. And so as you think about entering this type of situation again, because it will happen again, you don't have to worry about changing this in-law, right? You don't change them. That's not your job. You have no authority to change them. You get to change you. So when you show up with new and improved communication skills, you're going to give this in-law an awesome gift of wonder and curiosity. And it may take a while for it to catch up, but it always does. And it's usually way better for the relationship when there's that genuine wonder about why you're responding in a new way. So when you are dealing with a critical person, you always want to make sure you use I statements, right? Not like you're wrong or your views are just too extreme, right? We're not going to start any sentences with the word you, because that makes everybody else even more defensive and even more critical. We want to be the authority of ourselves, not other people. They are the authority of themselves. So we're going to talk from our perspective. So we want to make sure that we use I statements. So the next time you're in the room with the criticizing in-law, we use I statements, and you own your own point of view. And you actually straight out say it's different, and you own it, and you like it, and you like that it's different. One of my favorite things to say is like, I know my brain thinks different than everybody else's, because then that gives everyone their own permission to also think differently, and that it's okay. We don't all have to have the same political views, and we won't. So being able to say, I know that I think different than everyone else, and I'm totally okay with that. I'm happy that I think different than everyone else. It actually can bring a lot of relief, right? Because as you say these words, anyone else who's in the room has to now challenge their own thoughts and their own tactics of why they're trying to criticize and control other people. And when you can say like, I know I think different, and I'm happy that I think different than everyone else. I'm very happy with that. they're going to be like, wow, they're happy. They're happy about that, because I kind of feel mad. I feel angry and I'm yelling at everybody. They're going to start to self-reflect. And that's a gift you are able to give them through effective communication skills. Another way you could approach this is, it's an I statement, and it's so funny. I was hoping this would come up. Is you can say, like, let's say they're just ranting and raving about something very political, and they're just spouting off all their stuff and, telling everyone else they're wrong and why their convictions are right. You can say, I love that for you. I love that for you. That's amazing for you. So yesterday it was like super cold and super windy where we live, and we were out running around with the kids and getting them to all their places. And I was like, I need a beanie. I'm so freezing. And it was so windy. And so we had to stop at Walmart, and I was looking for a beanie. They didn't have any beanies, but they had this other section of hats. And I was like, I need a hat. And so I found hats with sayings on them. And I was like, okay, which saying am I going to get? And I love this. Look at this. I love that for you. I was like, I am so buying this hat. This is my favorite. I love that for you. This is such an awesome statement because it's positive. And you're just like saying, yes, like how you think that's great for you. I love that for you. You're also just creating that separateness, that there's no right or wrong, but that you love that for them, that person. They obviously like their political views. They're happy about them. You say, I love that for you. And it keeps your own values and political views where they need to be with you, right? That doesn't mean anything needs to change. The other final thing I think that would work in this situation would be to just observe yourself in that environment and pay attention. If there's like a threshold for you where you do really well for about, let's say, 3 hours, and you're managing your thoughts and you've practiced the skills, and then you realize, oh shoot, okay, maybe at that third hour, like I'm kind of beat and I don't have the energy to keep using those skills. I'm kind of wiped. So that's really important information for you to know about yourself. And what you can do is just create your own healthy personal boundary and just say, you know what, when I'm near this in-law that is very critical, just 3 hours. I am going to go in with love and respect and separateness, as far as like allowing him to have his own opinions and you to have your own opinions. And you're going to go in there and say, I'm going to enjoy that and use my skills for 3 hours. And then I'm going to make sure I have somewhere else to go. And being able to approach your relationships like that and create boundaries that are healthy for you before you kind of fall into that, oh, I think I'm going to start reacting negative. You don't need to do that. Stay in the zone where you are using awesome skills that are beneficial for the relationship. When you know you can't handle anymore, that is awesome news. Just say, I'm done at 3 hours. I got to go. That is something you can do for yourself. And you're going to feel very optimistic going to family functions, knowing that you don't have to endure that for 10 hours. There's no law that says you have to endure that for any given amount of time. You get to decide that for yourself so that it stays healthy and positive. This actually keeps relationships positive when you decide on a healthy boundary ahead of time for yourself. This is what's called, I can't remember the word. It's not it's not a boundary that you explain to someone else. It's implicit. It's internal. You don't need to tell anybody about this, right? You're not going to tell this in-law your boundaries. You just create them for yourself and then you honor them. You keep that respect for yourself. And that is a beautiful way to really involve self-love and self-care and also allow it for the other person.